So my name is Jacqueline Burgett, and I am the Associate Director for Emerging Initiatives at the Office of Strategic Partnerships and Technological Innovation at the Center for Devices and Radiological Health at the Food and Drug Administration. I am delighted to welcome you to day 2 of the public workshop titled Using Patient-Generated Health Data in Medical Device Developments, Case Examples of Implementation Throughout the Total Product Lifecycle. Next slide. This public workshop is co-sponsored by the Digital Medicine Society and the Food and Drug Administration's Center for Devices and Radiological Health. Next slide. The purpose of this public workshop is to illustrate how patient-generated health data can promote medical device innovation. Ultimately, our goal is to advance patient science, patient engagement, and health equity for medical devices. Next slide. Today's session is recorded, and the recording will be sent to everyone who registered for the workshop as soon as it is available. We will also post the recording on the website for this public workshop, along with the presentation slides. If you have questions during the workshop, please submit them to the panelists and hosts in the Q&A box. We will do our best to include your questions in the panel discussions as time allows. Next slide. So similar to yesterday, we are centering the patient voice in the agenda for this public workshop on patient-generated health data. We'll start off with a welcome discussion with patients. Next, we'll have a fireside chat with the FDA, ARPA-H, and the White House Office of Science and Tech Policy to see how medical device discussions fit into the larger framework on decentralized clinical trials, emergency preparedness, and health equity in clinical research. Next, we'll continue with real-world examples of how patient-generated health data can promote medical device innovation, which will inform a shared vision of 2030, where we all move forward together as interconnected industry sponsors, federal government stakeholders, researchers, and patients. So I'll pass it over to my co-lead for the public workshop at Digital Medicine Society, Smit Patel.
Thank you, Jackie, and welcome everybody. We are really thrilled and excited after fantastic discussions at the public workshop yesterday. As we remember from yesterday, we started with a terrific keynote from Elena, who shared her real personal experiences and patient stories and how she had used PGHD using medical device to understand her data and also used that in her journey with cancer that informed a lot of her medical treatments. Alongside, we also heard a lot of real-world case examples, all the way from epilepsy, Parkinson's, sleep disorders, physical activities, and how industry leaders and companies and organizations are using that for medical device development and bringing products to the market with bringing novel devices in the hands of patients who need them. Alongside, every session we heard about patients sharing the experiences, sharing what they want to see over the next couple of years as we think about new policies and as we think about new processes in place where their participation is included as a part of it. We also learned about convergence of medical devices and wellness space with alongside development and use of real-world data and how those real-world data can inform medical device developments early on with the right patient voice in incorporation, not just at the beginning of the process, but across as a continuous way. While PGHD was happening yesterday, it was very exciting to see a lot of progress from our government colleagues. One, yesterday at the White House Clinical Trials Forum, leaders from across industry and government convened and to discuss the progress, challenges, and identifying new actions to improve clinical trial participation and access. We also saw FDA publish a draft guidance on diversity action plans to improve enrollment of participants from underrepresented populations in clinical studies. And I think this is fantastic to see from our regulatory colleagues at FDA bring together as we think about advancing trial advancements over the next couple of years and making sure it's available for all individuals, and we are not forgetting who also deserve to be a part of the table. So with that, let's get to fantastic programming that Jackie just mentioned that we have in store for day 2, and I'll pass it over to my colleague and co-lead Robert Wright to introduce our remarks from FDA.
Thank you, Smit, and thank you, Jackie. Up next are opening remarks from the leader of the Office that Reviews Medical Device Applications at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Owen Ferris, Acting Director of the Office of Product Evaluation and Quality in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. Thank you, Owen.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks for the entire team for putting together this fantastic program. And I just want to welcome everybody this morning. It's just really exciting to see all of this energy and interest in this really important topic. My name is Owen Farris. I'm the acting director of the Office of Product Evaluation and Quality, which we call OPEC, at FDA's Center for Devices and Radiological Health, or CDRH. OPEC ensures that patients have access to high quality, safe and effective products throughout the total product life cycle. And we're the office that evaluates and clears medical devices for clinical investigations. So IDEs, we review and approve IDEs to study products. And we also review authorizations for market, such as our 510(k) pre-market notification process, our de novo process, and our PMA process. So for different risk level products, we review those products. So we look at, really from the very beginning, from concept of products all the way through clinical trials, marketing applications, and really into the post-market and understanding how products are performing once they are on the market and whether anything needs to be done to address potential concerns that might arise. My office, OPEC, is comprised of reviewers who receive medical device submissions. You've heard from some of them yesterday. Some of our reviewers, and really we're all focused on, high quality patient generated health data as part of medical device submissions. And, this conversation yesterday and today is a way that we can talk about that. We also have, in OPEC, in addition to the device specific parts of OPEC that look at, submissions for each different discipline of product. We have 8 of those that look at different disease states and different types of products across the medical device ecosystem. We also have offices that provide programmatic support for our reviewers as they engage in total product lifecycle reviews. So this includes OPEC's Office of Clinical Evidence and Analysis, which we call OCEA, which provides policy and program support regarding clinical trials, biostatistics, real-world evidence, and epidemiologic analyses across the total product lifecycle. The director of OCEA, Daniel Canos, as well as the chief medical officer, Charles Viviano, are going to be speaking later this afternoon. Both have been really important voices in integrating patient-generated health data throughout the total product lifecycle. And OCEA has been a leader in real-world evidence and regulatory science development for medical devices, including issuing draft guidance on how we look at real-world data and when and what does it take to constitute real-world evidence that we can use in our medical device review and decision-making. Patient-generated health data is really at this intersection of real-world evidence, patient science, digital health, and health equity. And I'm just going to take a minute or two to talk about a few ways in which that impacts the work that we do at FDA, and some of the ways that I think about patient-generated health data. And then I'm not going to take too long because I know we have a packed and really important agenda today, that we want to make sure that we get to. So, we see patient-generated health data in a few different forms. A device, we see devices that directly collect patient-generated health data, and they might be regulated as medical devices, and we would look at them as part of a marketing application. We also see patient-generated health data that's collected by researchers in support, to gather evidence that is in support of the performance of a medical device. This might be as part of a medical device development tool or an MDDT, or it could be outside of that program. And regardless of whether it's patient-generated health data that was collected by the device directly, or is collected by researchers in support of another device, it's usually reviewed by our team. And I just want to note that not all tools that gather patient-generated health data would meet the definition of a device. We have resources that you can look at on our website, and we're also happy to have specific conversations with you if you're trying to figure out that question. So we see patient-generated health data gathered throughout the total product life cycle. It can be really important during a clinical trial to understand certain aspects of the device performance. It might allow for certain data to be gathered in a remote setting, or other pieces of the puzzle that help us understand the performance of a product that's in the pre-market stage and being evaluated. It can also help us understand products that are on the market. Patient-generated health data could be incorporated into registries and other post-market data collection to help inform the continued evaluation of the safety and effectiveness of the product and understand if it's working as intended. It also has the potential to help the field move forward with fostering the development of methodology and analysis and clinical trial infrastructure. And some of these points are going to be highlighted in the fireside chat that's coming up a little later with voices from the Commissioner's Office and from ARPA-H and from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. I think of patient-generated health data, similar to how sometimes we think about other elements of real-world evidence, where, sometimes there's a perspective that might be, lesser data, less rigorous than some of our more traditional clinical trial data that we, sort of have a lot of experience with and confidence in. And I'd like to, I think probably most of you will agree with me, counter that perspective. I think patient-generated health data can add really important insights that might not be available otherwise from traditional clinical studies. And that it can just be a really important additive component to our understanding how products are performing and optimizing them so that they best meet the needs of patients. Patient-generated data can provide a better view in the patient's lived experience. It can provide more frequent and continuous data collection that we might not otherwise be able to gather. It can provide a lot of data in some cases, more, greater amounts of data that we might be gathering more sporadically in the absence of such data. And in some instances, it can really lower the burden of gathering key data that tells us how patients are experiencing a product. We can provide more data with fewer clinic visits or research visits sometimes. We can allow the voice of a broader set of patients that might not typically have access. We might not typically have access to gathering that data from, and then we're not making as good of decisions. And so, having that broader set of voices and broader perspectives and real world perspectives on how patients who will be using these products are experiencing them can be really helpful, and it can really help advance our common goal of improving health equity with regard to medical devices. It can also allow sponsors to collect more data more quickly, and the potential to shorten clinical trials and bring products to market more quickly and impact lives in that way. So we're going to have more discussion today on a lot of these points. I know we've had some really great case studies yesterday. I know there'll be more today. Talking about how to optimize and best leverage patient-generated health data to reduce burden and improve inclusivity of our data collection, and really, to help all of us, regulatory agencies, other stakeholders, and most importantly, patients, be more informed and make better choices and have better access to products that can help improve their lives. So this is just a really exciting topic. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to speak to you for a few minutes. I hope that the rest of the day is as meaningful and valuable to you as I understand the first day has been for folks. I think it's a great agenda. I'll just close by, as I started, just really welcoming you all from representing FDA here today, and just sending you a large welcome. And I hope that you have a great day. I hope that you engage. I hope that you get everything out of this really important meeting that you can. And so thanks so much. And with that, I will close and turn it back to you all.
Thank you so much, Owen. That was fantastic. And thank you for setting the stage and also reminding us on the value of PGHD and how it informs not just the regulatory processes, but also the device development, but also incorporation of patients. So really thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll stay for a little bit of the programming today as we head over to some programming. With that, I am really excited for the next session as we talk about PGHD. One of the first things that happens, or the first letter, is about patients. And today, I'm delighted to welcome our patient communities for the welcome chat about bring the megaphone and give it to the patients first, because they deserve it. And welcome Grace Vinton and Grace Kerndab to the stage for the welcome chat.
Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Grace Vinton, healthcare PR pro, patient advocate, podcast host and moderator for today's session. Bring the microphone and give it to the patients first. So that's what I'm here to do. I'd like to first start by sharing a little bit about my harrowing personal patient experience. Several years ago, I was experiencing one misdiagnosis after another. It was a terrifying experience, and I nearly lost my life. Thankfully, I found my diagnosis and treatment. But through the journey, I realized that patients and their lived experience, they're not just passive recipients of healthcare and research, but in fact, they are healthcare experts. And so that brings us to the heart of today's discussion and a great way to launch this workshop today. How can patient-generated health data revolutionize and put the patient voice and experience at the forefront where it rightfully belongs? So I'm thrilled to introduce our distinguished speaker, Grace Cordovano. She is a board-certified patient advocate specializing in oncology, a tireless advocate for patient access to their data, and a champion for using patient-generated health data to drive innovation in healthcare. Her work with DIME and her personal dedication to patient advocacy on the front lines with patients and caregivers, just making things happen, make her an invaluable voice in this conversation today. So thanks for joining us, Grace. Hashtag the Graces Unite. We're thrilled to be here
so
with you.
much. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, we go by the Graces, and we are so excited to kick off this very important conversation with the patient and care partner perspective. What a monumental thing, and how far we've come to be recognized as an essential stakeholder and part of this conversation, but not only of the conversation, but to be included within a webinar with the FDA. We're so grateful for this time and space. So let's go.
Exactly. Let's go. Let's dive in. Our patient advocacy community has been fighting for this opportunity to be at the table like this. So we're just thrilled to be here. So Grace, let's start. Let's dive in. From your perspective, what value does patient-generated health data offer to patients, caregivers, and care partners?
Such an important question, because value is different depending on the stakeholder. And from the patient perspective, especially someone who's living with multiple comorbidities, chronic illness, life-altering, life-limiting conditions, or perhaps even in active death, end-of-life care, it will reduce the patient administrative burden. It'll allow us to more personalize and more custom tailor the care that we need, especially when things are evolving very quickly. One follow-up visit a month or a check-in every week isn't enough when you're living with cancer, when you're living with a rare disease, when you're living with multiple comorbidities. I want to point out, we often treat a patient with a particular condition because we go to specialists. Maybe it's for a migraine, maybe it's for a pregnancy, maybe it's for prostate cancer, maybe it's for diabetes, but we're never ever one condition. In most patients, and especially as we get older, there's multiple circumstances and conditions, and patient-generated health data can give a more comprehensive look at really what's going on day to day outside of the clinic, outside of any specialist, really marrying everything together to create a mosaic of all of these data points to show this is who I am in this point in time, and we can tighter medications and doses and adjustments, manage side effects. There is a plethora of benefits and value to a patient. What does this do for a caregiver or a provider? Well, it gives them a more comprehensive view of what's going on when that patient isn't in front of me, when I can't care for them. Maybe if they have missed their appointment, in between appointments, on those Fridays, Saturdays, holidays, weekends, when our physicians aren't and care teams aren't in the office. How wonderful would it be to be able to send and exchange that information over the electronic health record and say, this is what's going on. Please help support me in my care right now, so I don't have to go to the emergency room or worse. And when I think of the care partner, as someone who's the care partner to two disabled adults, it would be so wonderful to have a digital command center so that I can keep an eye on my mom and my brother and see what's going on. Are they taking their medications? Do their vitals look okay? Are there things that we should be monitoring? Is mom walking enough? You know, as a breast cancer survivor, there's so many different things that I always worry about. And while I'm grateful to the Office of the National Coordinator for making sure that our health information and medical records and results are in a portal, it would be so much easier if I could have more. We're hungry for more, and this is a channel that's untapped to bring this data in to allow us to really care for ourselves better, care for our loved ones better, and partner with our physicians better to create a trusted shared decision-making process.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes so much sense. Patient-generated health data starts with the word patient, right? So what role does the patient's voice and participation play in advancing clinical research, medical device development, et cetera?
When I look at this role, I think that there's, as we kicked off and had the opening remarks, we see that there's so many gaps in data. And how many patients, for example, miss an appointment because they're too sick, because life happens, because a child or a parent they may be caring for may need greater attention at that moment in time. So how many times do moms put themselves on a back burner? How many times does that single parent, whether it's a mom, dad, or a legal guardian, put their health on a back burner, though they really do need care? How wonderful would it be to have that patient-generated health data to be able to contribute asynchronously? Because you know what, one of the biggest problems is the stigma of the patients that are no-shows, the patients that are late. Well, you know what? I'm sure at any given time I'm that patient because life happens, but that doesn't mean I don't need care. Whether it's screening, whether it's going for clinical trials, we know that a sponsor doesn't want their trial participants and partners missing important data points, visits, images, scans. What a wonderful opportunity to have this patient-generated health data supplement what's already happening, improve the diversity of the population that's able to participate. We now blur the state lines because now we can participate virtually. There is no limit to the value that this is going to bring. So not later, we need to do this now.
Absolutely. Do this now. And the panelists are saying amen in the comments. So thanks, guys, for cheering us on here. So, what are the biggest challenges to just making this thing happen? Like, what, from the patient perspective, what is standing in our way of being able to do this?
I mean, you have your basics of, connectivity. We always talk about this, and we talk about the technological barriers that people aren't going to understand how to use. I'm tired of talking of those. We've been talking about this for so long. What are we going to do about it? As I was thinking about this last night, I want to see the Department of Education step up. We need to update the curricula. We need to start talking about this and introducing this. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. I know you have kids. Many of us have kids. They are not talking about this in schools. And our kids are really smart and they're coming home with all types of things that they're absorbing. They're super tech savvy. They're on their smart devices. They could be bringing this information to families, to their loved ones. And I work with a lot of immigrant families where the teens and the young adults are the most digitally savvy. They're the most English proficient, and they could be the ones that could be a conduit of information. And they're the ones that are navigating US healthcare and caring for mom, dad, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, coming to the appointments. I was one of those kids growing up. So I have a special place in my heart to give a competitive advantage and resources and tools to this generation because they're ready for it. And now we start building trust, and it doesn't become only once someone is so sick. Hey, do you want to do a clinical trial? Hey, you should use this device, because that seems like they would say sus, right? Suspicious. We don't really trust that. If we take decades of time to start incrementally introducing at age appropriate manners, how they could be leading the charge. Maybe all of us will lose our job and we won't have to advocate anymore, because you know what? They're going to provide the solutions and the information for the next generation to really make this mainstream and not something that we're dreaming big about.
Absolutely. And it seems like you just need to change the narrative for people at the education level. Like you said, really early on, you are the only one responsible for and accountable to the quality of your own data. No one else is responsible and accountable for that other than you. So if you make sure it's quality and it's good, and wherever your data is, it's quality, we're going to be in a much better place as a healthcare system overall. So let's talk Tequity. What are some challenges and opportunities for the industry to grow here?
I mean, gosh, we need to stop hiding behind this stigma that we can't access. They do want to access. I work with immigrant populations and patients who are unsupported all the time, and they are super excited by access to technology, access to Chat GPT. They just need a little bit of coaching. I'm super excited about First Lady Biden's Principal Illness Navigation Program, because now there is a reimbursable pathway to connect patient navigators to support patients and families in connecting with the care that they need. I want to see that program grow and have more codes ideally, because how wonderful would it be to have maybe a technical Sherpa that can be that tech-enabled human touch to support where in some cases, people are going to need support. But again, education, awareness, resources such as libraries. How can we better support libraries? And what are the librarians? They're waiting to be a plethora of knowledge and wisdom to share, whether it's Wi-Fi connectivity or how do you look up things? How can we get devices and this concept of patient-generated health data into our communities? I love hearing from patients. I just left ASCO and I learned a new word there, the therapist. Think about how much time women spend in a salon getting their hair done and how religiously faithful we could be. Men too go to the barbers, and there's proven data showing that barbershops can manage, for example, blood pressure. What if we now consulted with our therapists, or maybe the people at the local laundromat or the coffee shop in the bodegas? That's where conversations about health are happening. How are we engaging them? Because this is where the community is going to our, more traditional places of worship as well. There are so many opportunities to introduce the concept of patient-generated health data, to build trust, to bring education and awareness, and then start pulling some of these amazing resources, whether it's from the FDA or whether it's from ONC. There's so much information out there that now we can start pulling into communities. Of course, making it culturally appropriate, available in many language. Sky is the limit. And again, let's go.
Say it louder for the people in the back, right? So you have the megaphone. This is the title of the session today. What other recommendations do you have for patients, for the industry, for government that you feel like people today just need to know?
We need a budget to support partnership and co-creation with patients. And I'm seeing progress on many fronts from various stakeholders. Pharma's doing a great job. I see many national level organizations. I see companies, big tech, policy starting to invest and create a line item for a budget. Why do you need that line item? You see, we assume patient advocates are all pro bono. Nothing wrong with that. But this work takes rolling up your sleeve, and it's longitudinal, continuous work. For it to be successful, we need to be meeting multiple times a week. There's homework and pre-reads and strategic feedback. So we need to be treated as strategic partners and advisors. And if we don't have a budget, then only the people who can show up, that have the luxury of time, the privilege of being able to show up, that have childcare and Wi-Fi and all these things, we're missing on a very rich pipeline of wisdom if we don't have a budget. And I'm going to go farther than it's not enough to include patients. Include the care partners. Go farther than that, include surviving care partners. Who's that? The people who have cared for someone who is really sick for a very long time and their loved one has died. That patient has died. They are sitting on a wealth of information. All of the ways that healthcare and our healthcare ecosystem has failed them and their loved one, and they would love to share that, and we're not listening to them. And it's also very healing for that surviving care partner to be able to grieve and go through this process. So it's a beautiful thing. It would be an asset to healthcare and anyone working on patient-generated health data to also make sure you tap into surviving care partners.
And pay them for their time and put together a feedback loop. If something they said makes a change, tell them about it. They want to know. Grace, do you have any closing things for us to say before we wrap this up?
I'd be amiss to say if that privacy is not a concern, unauthorized access isn't a concern, data breaches, lack of control. We have to have data segmentation, personalized consent in place so that we can really arm patients. So once we educate them about the power, listen to how they really need this, where their friction and suffering points are, we need to make sure that they're able to operationalize and contribute. And because many patients, when they do have transparency and understand how their data is being used, they want to contribute, but they don't want to be taken advantage of. We cannot create another channel for harm, discrimination, bias, and other silos. So let's get this done. And the way that we're going to do it is now bring the right people into the room, make sure you have diverse representation, have a budget, and create the technology that's needed to really kick this off the ground so that it's not something that we're dreaming big about in a 2-day webinar, but very commonplace in healthcare.
Thank you so much, Grace. And I'm going to turn this one back to you, Smit. Thanks for having us and including the patient voice at the start of today, which is going to be a great day of brain trust and change that's going to make this space better.
Thank you so much, Grace and Grace. That was fantastic. Thank you for reminding us that keeping patients at the forefront ensures innovation and equity in medical devices.